Okay. Can you all hear me? Yeah, good. We're on. Yeah, we're good. Thank you, Phil.
I'm gonna lose you halfway through.
So good morning. Thanks for being here to hear about the Artist's Way. I'm going to both share information about the program and talk a bit about my experiences in the program so you can get a feeling of what it's like to go through the Artist's Way. Before I start sharing information, though, I wanted to know, how many of you are familiar with the Artist's Way in any way whatsoever? Susan? Okay, a little bit. Anyone done an Artist's Way program? Phil? You did, yay.
Well, we did the Artist's Way in retirement.
Okay.
Book club.
I'm glad you shared that because there's something interesting to know about the Artist's Way. If you think the Artist's Way is just about becoming an artist and painting and going off somewhere and creating beautiful visual art or doing whatever, it's about so much more. It's about, basically, it's a creative approach. It's unlocking your inner creative, and your inner creative can help you in so many ways. Charting a path through retirement. How can I meaningfully volunteer? So even though a lot of the samples I will be sharing today are visual art, because that was my focus, what I really discovered as I went through this 12, 13-week program over in Tacoma was that there was a lot more involved, and that the tools I was learning were going to benefit me for a lifetime, whether or not I ever became an artist, quote unquote. Okay, So what is the Artist's Way? In brief, it's a spiritual path for creative recovery. That's kind of a mouthful, but basically the premise here is that the Artist's Way, it helps you discover how to be creative on behalf of yourself and God, recognizing God as the source of your creativity. Okay? So I was part of an Artist's Way group in Tacoma at the Center for Spiritual Living. And this is a program that has been at this church for a number of years. One person has been running it. The program is based on Julia Cameron's book of the same name, The Artist's Way. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. It may even be on a lot of bookshelves. So this program has been around for more than 30 years. And again, it recognizes God as the ultimate creator. And I think that's what attracted me. I knew that I had this great wealth of creativity inside of me. I knew for sure that God was the source of it, and I was looking for a way to channel it. To tell you just a little bit about myself and my background, I retired August 2024. And when that happened, and when my day job was no longer my sole occupation, I had so much more time to do the things that I had always wanted to do. I mean, we're talking knitting, painting, many, many different things, lots of time. So I had a history through my whole life of being creative. When I was in elementary, late elementary, and middle school, I was very much into stage acting. I was in choirs, I was performing, probably at the peak of my young career. I was actually fortunate enough to be in a middle school production that NBC, our local NBC affiliate, came in, saw the production, and said, we're going to make a TV show out of that. And that TV show was nominated for a local Emmy. It didn't win. But what I learned early was it was just so much fun. But then, as tends to happen, we all move into high school. I moved into high school, and I encountered high school drama, where things weren't quite as easy breezy. And after 1 year of high school drama, which went well, but it was more of a competitive struggle than I'd imagined, I was saying, this isn't for me. So what I learned in the Artist's Way is that was probably a creative U-turn. That was me with all this creativity I have, saying, no, thank you. I simply don't want to fight that other person in order to do what I want to do. So that was my first creative U-turn. There was another one that occurred around the same point in time. In high school, I was studying piano, and I was getting pretty advanced. I'd always noodled around, but my parents finally gave me lessons in high school. Well, I get to college, and did I take that with me? I did not. And why didn't I? Because there were all those music majors wandering around who had so much more experience than I had. And so I did something that made me, I told myself, just as happy. I majored in English. Now, this was not a bad thing, but it is another creative U-turn. Me looking in the face of something that I loved and blinking and saying, no, I'm just not going to go there. Okay? So, I graduated from college, and I go out and I get a job, and my job is in writing, which isn't terribly surprising since it's a writing allied field. But what was I doing? Was I really writing my own material? No, I was editing other people's material. So this is another thing that's characteristic of many of us artistic temperaments. We will do things that are allied to art, but aren't the central activity. A good example would be, I'm not going to be the painter, but I'll help the painter clean up after the painting is done. So, an Artist's Way program, it was really a good thing for me because it caused me to take a look. The biggest thing it did for me was it caused me to take a look at the patterns in my life and see where I had backed off from passions, either because and sometimes it was me, or someone else said, you're just not good enough for that. Okay, so if this sounds at all like you or something that might have happened to you in the past, you might want to consider an Artist's Way program, because a lot of what you spend time doing in the Artist's Way program is asking yourself, what do I truly love? What do I want to do? And then you build up resiliencies that help you stand firm in the face of internal and even external adversity. Okay, so that said, I'm already forgetting to advance my slides. So before we talk too much about what happened in the Artist's Way program, I'd like to share a little bit more background with you, specifically the core principles of the Artist's Way. There are 10 of them, and I'm actually going to read them. That may sound a little rote, but focusing on these, I think, is very helpful. There is something here for everyone. First of all, actually, could I ask you, if you hear something in any one of these that resounds with you, just raise your hands. I think it's interesting to see what pieces of the Artist's Way resound most with different people. First, creativity is the natural order of life. Life is energy, pure creative energy. 2, there is an underlying, indwelling creative force infusing all of life, including ourselves. 3, when we open ourselves to our creativity, we open ourselves to the Creator's creativity within us and our lives. 4, we are ourselves creations, and we in turn are meant to continue creativity by being creative ourselves. Yeah. 5, creativity is God's gift to us. Using our creativity is our gift back to God. Number 6, and I will admit up front, this is almost my personal favorite. The refusal to be creative is self-will, and it's counter to our true nature. So this is my personal get out of jail free card, because as someone who at various points in my life was told that I was too much, too noisy, too creative, too outgoing, too ambitious, yeah, you've heard it, yeah. This tells me I'm supposed to be out there doing this, because these things that you're saying are too whatever, they are authentic, creative expressions of me, right? Okay, so moving on. 7, when we open ourselves to exploring our creativity, we open ourselves to God, good, orderly direction. So I'm going to pause here because I find this one interesting. You know, Julia Cameron, throughout the book, makes no bones about the fact that God and the creative spiritual force underpins all of this. But I find the acronym curious because I almost feel like she felt she had to say something to help make it palatable for folks who maybe aren't religious, who don't have deep, deep spirituality going on. It's interesting when we talked about this in one of the groups I participate in, and Daryl Doggs actually says, well, personally, I don't like the word God. He says, I think there are better ways we could express that concept. And I think he's right. So I've come up with many other things. I rarely say God anymore. I'll often say the great creator. You'll hear me talk about that later. It feels much more suitable and appropriate for me. 8, as we open our creative channel to the Creator, many gentle but powerful changes are to be expected. So I found this one at the beginning of the program mysterious, and I will tell you that I am not sure. Oh, hand up. Thank you. Better? No, thank you for telling me. The Artist's Way program is a lot of things, but the program itself, as I experienced it, I wouldn't characterize as gentle. I also wouldn't characterize it as rough. Participating in the program involved a fair amount of effort, okay? Fun things, and I'm going to tell you many of the things that I did, and they're all fun, but it involved a fair amount of discipline to get through the program. And where gentleness came in for me was in taking care of myself during the program. Feeding myself properly, making sure I got enough sleep, making sure I stayed hydrated, because it is a little bit, doing the program in 12 weeks at least, and some people may have done it more. It was a good bit of effort, positive effort. I wouldn't let that discourage anybody who's interested in doing it. If you have 10 hours a week, you can do the Artist's Way. All right, number 9, it is safe to open ourselves up to greater and greater creativity. Yeah, the word safe is important there too, because a lot of people who are creative, since we've been told we're too much of something or other, for us having a safe environment for expressing our creativity, at least as we're getting our sea legs, is extremely important. And number 10, our creative dreams and yearnings come from a divine source. As we move toward our dreams, we move toward our divinity. Yeah. So like I said, pretty much something here for everyone, and certainly deeply spiritual in the principles. All right, in addition to principles in the Artist's Way, we have some what I would call core underlying themes. And there are a fair number of those, but the 2 I wanted to focus on this morning are synchronicity and generosity. And I'm going to read to you a quotation that landed in my inbox maybe about a week ago. And I realized it has a strong relationship to synchronicity and to generosity, and so I thought I would share it this morning. When I was 6 or 7 years old, growing up in Pittsburgh, I used to take a precious penny of my own and hide it for someone else to find. I was greatly excited at the thought of the first lucky passerby who would receive in this way, regardless of merit, a free gift from the universe. I've been thinking about seeing. There are lots of things to see, unwrapped gifts and free surprises. The world is fairly studded and strewn with pennies cast broadside from a generous hand. And this is an excerpt from Annie Dillard's Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. So what struck me about this is Julia Cameron emphasizes both synchronicity and generosity as part of the Artist's Way path. Synchronicity, probably using a little bit of Julia Cameron's words and my own here, is basically that unexpected, even unearned gift from the universe that we are supposed to open up and accept. How many of you have ever said when something just happens to you like a windfall, oh, I don't deserve that? Well, I would say, really? I mean, I think it depends. That job that you've wanted all along that suddenly drops in your lap, that $10 bill that arrives in the mail, that actually happened to me during the Artist's Way. So Julia Cameron's point is that when you open yourself up to this, to creativity, to letting God work through you, when you look for those synchronicities, those unexpected gifts in your life, and you begin to accept them, and then you turn around and you use them, and you use them to benefit not just yourself, but others. And it becomes just a lovely reciprocal cycle. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what actually happens in an Artist's Way program. So what do you do in the Artist's Way? So there are really 4 basic tools and 1 helpful attribute, I would say, for the Artist's Way. The basic tools are the morning pages, the artist date, reading the book and doing the exercises in the book, and class or group participation. So the latter one, class or group participation, that's optional, and there aren't exactly Artist's Way programs in every area. There are a couple good ones here, and I'll tell you about them later. But the thing of it is, if you're going to invest this time, you're doing a lot of work on yourself, and to bring that home weekly to a class where you can share with other people who are going through the same thing is extremely helpful. I would have found it very hard to do this on my own with the book, okay? So it's just helpful with other people. Let's move on and talk a bit about each of the tools in detail. Oh, go back briefly. I realized the last thing is commitment and dedication, but I talked a little bit about that earlier. Whether you're going it on your own or whether you're doing it with a group, I took an all-in approach, and I think I got more out of it for that reason. I pretty much did everything that was suggested to me to do, and came out of it, I would say, with a lot of positive experience and growth. So, morning pages. Some of you may have heard me talk about this in forum in the spring, so I won't talk a whole lot about it here, but for those of you who are new to the program or don't know much about it, morning pages is a key element of Artist's Way, and any Artist's Way facilitator, if you're in a group class, will really be pushing for completion of the pages. They won't exactly check your homework, they're not supposed to, but they might ask, did you do it? So it's 3 pages, first thing every morning, and it's not the same thing as a regular journaling practice because what you're really looking to do is just to do that first thing in the morning dump of whatever is in your mind and get it on the page. And why would that be important? It would be important because once you get all of that detritus out of your head for the morning, you are then free to move on with whatever your agenda is for the day. No kidding, I was incredibly productive during the 13 weeks of the program because I was making sure I was sitting, up usually by 6 or 6:30 writing those pages. They were most weeks done before I even walked in the door here on Sunday morning, and that's saying something. I took it seriously and I did it. And this is one of the aspects that I would almost say is kind of like boot camp. Some mornings it's easy, and some mornings, oh my gosh, when the words just won't come. It's perfectly okay to sit there and for 3 pages say, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, because eventually something will probably come to you and you'll get your 3 pages, and then on with the rest of the day. So for anyone who's curious about what could you write about, talking to God was a big one for me. Celebrating, Phil.
I've also double-spaced my morning pages to get
You didn't. I will admit to writing extra large. And one day I just got really frustrated and I did this big squiggly and said something like, I'm done, and I was. So, but that's important too, because if you just force yourself into 3 pages of notebook writing every day and you don't give yourself a little humorous break, well then it's going to backfire too. So you do need to balance, and I think it's okay to cheat a little bit. Yes?
I think the biggest benefit for reading the morning pages is I often don't know what's in my head until I write it down. And then when I see it on the paper, I go, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking about. I just don't know what's there until I write it down.
That too. Yeah, many surprises show up. And another thing that can happen in morning pages is you'll find yourself kidding yourself. You'll be saying something and you'll be like, oh, that really isn't true. and when you see it in writing, you can't stand it. That can happen too. So, did that ever happen to you?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, when your own stuff shows up on the page, it's a little humbling. It's a lot humbling. So that's morning pages, and it's very helpful. And I really did, if there was one practice that I said I simply cannot I can't back down on this one, it was morning pages. All right, so the artist date. This may sound weird, but if morning pages was the discipline for me, the artist date was the dessert. And so what is the artist date? Basically, it's a weekly date, every week during the program, no exceptions, not supposed to be at least. 2 hours doing something that you want to do. And it is scheduled. You are supposed to schedule it. It's no fair to look back on Friday and say, well, on Wednesday I went to a movie, so that was my artist date. That artist date only counts if you put it on your calendar and you stick to it, you plan it in advance. Because then you're more likely to wind up doing things that you really, really like to do. And so if morning pages is the discipline and clearing your brain, what is the component, or what does the artist date add? The artist date is the food for the inner creative. It's taking out that inner artist, taking them on a date. And you got to keep in mind, your inner artist is a kid. They really are. It's that part of you that, in childhood may have been told to tone it down, and now they're out here and all they want to do is play. And it's your responsibility to help them play. So go do that. And the best way to do that is alone, right? If you're raising kids, you take time to take each kid out alone and give them their own personal time. Don't bring somebody with you, because if you bring somebody with you, you might have fun talking to them, but you will be distracted from your primary purpose, which is to tend that inner artist. Okay, so artist dates. I had so much fun. Gosh, I had a blast. Okay, so what did I do? Sometimes I just stayed home, and maybe I did this twice because these weren't my favorite dates. I stayed home and I used my artist tools. I collaged, or I collaged one time. Another time I had a crochet kit I'd been wanting to break out, and I sat at home and I did the crochet kit. Okay, it's just the sort of thing you say, oh, I'm going to sit down this afternoon and do whatever, and you never get to it. So I maybe used 2 dates that way, just so I could play with my toys at home. I went to 2 movies, one of which was called The Way, My Way, which is a fairly recent, maybe within the last year or 2, documentary by the Australian filmmaker Bill Bennett. He decided he was going to walk the Camino. He wrote a book about it. I put it over there because I realized during Artist Way that walking the Camino would be something I'd love to do. So, because that's not going to happen tomorrow, one of my artist dates, it just happened, here's synchronicity, it just happened that Bill Bennett was in town in Tacoma doing a showing of the movie at the Grand. And he was there with one of the pilgrims he'd walked with, who showed up in the movie, and with his wife, who also played his wife in the movie. And they screened the movie, and then we had maybe a 20 to 30-minute discussion about it. And it was great fun, because not only did I have the vicarious experience of walking the Camino through the documentary, but I got to hear some of the people who've been very involved in developing the movie talk about it. So a chance not just to walk the Camino, but to meet the artist who did this particular documentary. Let's see, I went to an art exhibit in Seattle. Let's see if I can, yes. This little image here is from the Joyce Scott exhibit, which was at the Seattle Art Museum until late last January. She's a fabulous artist. I won't go on and on about her, but going to an art exhibit is a great thing to do if your inner artist likes the visual arts. One day, I went and got a mani-pedi. That's fair, right? It's 2 hours by myself. It's fair. One day, I walked the sand spit and collected seashells and sea glass. And as my capstone activity, because Julia Cameron suggests, what would it be like if you did more than 2 hours on your artist date? So I'm like, I can do way better than that. And I disappeared for a whole weekend, and I went down to the Benedictine Priory in Lacey and had a silent retreat. So really important, because hopefully you can see this was probably one of my favorite parts of the program, except for show and tell, which I'll talk about in a minute. So critical to freeing that inner child. All right, I'm going to kind of buzz through some of this here. So reading and exercises. Okay, the textbook may sound deadly dull, but Julia Cameron's an excellent writer. Doing a chapter a week on your own or in a class is not a hardship. You can finish the reading in a half hour or less. The exercises may be a little different. That takes a little bit of elbow grease, but the exercises lead to self-discovery. So good to do them. So briefly, I'm going to talk through, or not talk through, but just list the 12 chapters, because this is what Julia Cameron organizes creative recovery into. She says it's about recovering a sense of safety, a sense of identity, a sense of power, a sense of integrity, a sense of possibility, a sense of abundance, a sense of self-protection, a sense of compassion, a sense of faith, a sense of strength, a sense of autonomy, and a sense of connection. And, I felt that the exercises each week pretty much stuck to those things, to those categories, but there was a lot of overlap by necessity. But these descriptions here, this is all designed to shore up the inner artist and help create, if you will, a safe playground for that inner artist, inner creative, to express themselves. All right, so exercises, since I just told you that, yeah, sometimes they're hard to do. I wanted to share my favorite exercise. So during one of the weeks, we were asked to create an artist's altar. And I looked forward to this. It took me all of 15 minutes to grab things and put my altar together because I knew exactly what I wanted it to say. But let me share with you a little bit about what Julia Cameron says about the artist's altar. And then I'll walk you through. This slide is actually the picture I took of my altar when I created it like 4 or 5 months ago. Many blocked creatives grew up in punitively religious homes. For us to stay happily and easily creative, we need to heal from this. Becoming spiritually centered through creative rituals of our own. A spiritual room, or even a spiritual corner, is an excellent way to do this. This haven can be a corner of a room, a nook under the stairs, even a window ledge. It's a reminder and an acknowledgement of the fact that our Creator unfolds our creativity. Fill it with things that make you happy. Remember that your artist is fed by images. We need to unlearn our old notion that spirituality and sensuality don't mix. An artist's altar should be a sensory experience. And then she goes on to briefly add that small rituals, self-devised, are good for the soul. So she's saying burn incense, read affirmations, that sort of thing. So when I read this, I realized that, if you walk into my office, the office at my home, I probably have 3 or 4 nooks that constitute altars with different sorts of things in them, different things that make me happy. So all I had to do to create this altar was gather a few of them together. And so what you see here, and I won't talk about everything, but the covering, the cloth covering, is a tablecloth made from an old sari that I found in a antique shop over in Port Orchard. It just made me happy. Here on the far left and the far right, you see 2 of my soul collage cards, and I'll talk a little bit about soul collage in a moment. This card on the left is joy. She's my personal expression of joy. And the one on the right is rooted, grounded, and held, and that expresses how I feel held in my spiritual relationship with God. And then here in the background is the Mother Mary mandala, which I created during a workshop I took several years ago on the Divine Feminine. It's just different aspects of the Divine Mother. I also included Kuan Yin for compassion to self and to others. A copy of the collected works of Emily Dickinson, who is absolutely one of my favorite poets. I just love her writing. And let's see, a couple of stones. There's a couple of crystals, selenite here, which represents cleansing, and labradorite, which represents insight, just kind of things that are important to me. So just a rough collection of things, and that was the altar 3 months ago, and who knows, if I were to put it together today, it might have a slightly different look to it, but just things that are important for me. So that was one of the exercises that I took great joy in doing. Another exercise example, these are 2 more soul collage cards, Creator with a capital C over on the left, and Creator lowercase c, my own expression, on the right. And just a little bit about soul collage, since going into the artist's way, it may have been my primary artistic expression. I'm both a practitioner of soul collage, that means I've done a fair number of cards, and I'm a facilitator, which means I went to training so that I can help others do soul collage. And so a lot of the work I do, if I need a quick artistic go-to practice, I'm probably pulling my cards out and doing something. So on the left, the great Creator, the source of my inspiration, that of course is the card that represents the divine Creator. It isn't exactly what I would call a source card. If you're familiar with soul collage, there is a source card, that's different. But this is a card that represents that archetypal influence I feel driving my creativity. And then here on the right, again, that's just me talking about all the things I love to do. Writing, watering my plants, just generally reveling in creativity. Okay, so a bit about class and group participation, which is, again, I've said being in the class was really important for me. So if you were to go to an Artist's Way class, and different facilitators might run this differently, you would probably do check-in about your morning pages and artist date. That's a group discussion, and it's more than just wrote, did you do it? The greater interest is in what did it mean for you? What did you learn from it? We also share about the exercises. My facilitator would break us into small groups and have us talk through the exercises. That was actually really rewarding for those of us who did the work. If the people who didn't do the work, I think, did not have as much fun with that. There was participation, and I phrase that as different, or separate that out from doing morning pages and sharing about the exercises. Every now and then we would be asked to just do something as a class. One of those was sharing the altars. We designed and shared our altars. Another exercise out of the book was go get a pair of silly socks and come to class and be prepared to walk the runway. Yeah, this all may sound crazy and silly, but honestly, after a couple weeks of this, I was looking forward to what's next. Oh my goodness, because it's all very freeing. It's designed to help you access a part of yourself that you probably spent a lot of your life protecting, right? And maybe you're reluctant to let out. But the part of class I enjoyed absolutely the most was show and tell. And I'm not going to say too much about, well, I'm going to tell you some of the things I saw, but I'm not going to tell you too much about the people, because participating in Artist's Way, because it is considered a recovery program, is confidential. The teacher actually burned the class rolls when we were done. We were allowed to share information among ourselves, but the facilitator did not make any effort to connect us. So one participant was someone who had been struggling with shyness for years. A very talented musician, instrumentalist, composer, who somehow summoned the courage to perform a full set of their music in class one night. It was awe-inspiring. Another person is a visual artist. This person constructs 3D representations that are similar to do you all know what auris are? They're like sculptures or representations of of how the cosmos works. The celestial realms, if you will, brought into a model. So this person designed huge versions of those and brought them into class and actually talked for 20 minutes about them, which this doesn't happen during show and tell. Show and tell is usually 5 to 10 minutes, do your thing. But both the performance for the music and the display of the sculptures went on for about 20. And a very interesting thing happened after the presentation of the sculptures. I noticed when I came back to class the next week that at least a good 10 to 15 people were missing. Okay, we'd started with 50 people. We finished with around 25, which is average, which is usual, the facilitator told me. But what happened is that apparently those people came up to the facilitator and said, "You let this artist talk too long." This too was a lesson, right? That even in a supportive self-care group, that green-eyed monster of jealousy can rear its head, because that's, in my mind, that's what was happening. And it felt horrible. And the facilitator said to us, the reason I let them talk for so long is because they are a living, breathing example of the artist's way, with which I completely agreed. So I share this, it may sound like a negative, but to me it wasn't. It was, when I think of the top 5 learning experiences from the program, that's one of them that comes to mind, right? So we got not only the model of the artist's way, we also got the modeling of, and to that, I say, to the naysayers, I say, take it somewhere else, which is important. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple resources if you're interested. The book, of course, a great place to start. Although, again, I will say, if you're like me, books, it takes me a while to read books anyway, so the class was really a driver for getting me through the book and the program. We're fortunate to have a couple local organizations that do offer classes, and there may be more than this, but again, the Center for Spiritual Living in Tacoma, it's adjacent to Wright Park in Tacoma. They generally run an Artist Way class starting in mid-January, early to mid-January through mid-April. There are generally 2 sections, Friday night and Sunday. You pick one. Extremely reasonable in terms of cost. The facilitator is donating their time, at least they've done that historically, and $60 was what I paid for 12 weeks of training. So that's called the love offering, to support the fact that the church is also providing the coffee and tea and the facility. Okay. So again, it is one of the most interesting, incredible experiences I've ever had. There is another organization in Seattle, a considerably pricier option, but they do look like a pretty reputable and established organization, called the Seattle Artists Way Center. I know they offer Zoom options. So the courses, though, I think do tend to run several $100s. Okay, so they are more expensive. So just a couple of options if this sounds at all interesting to you. The other thing I would say, actually should say this, is that keep in mind, unlike other programs, the book is copyrighted for certain, but Julia Cameron put the information in the book at the urging of other people who knew her, because she wanted other people, others all around, all of us, to have a toolkit for creative recovery. So you're not going to find, I don't think, certified Artist Way leaders. Artist Way leaders are generally, and this is certainly the case over in Tacoma, self-appointed. Now the good news is, over in Tacoma, the people who are running this have a lot of experience. They've done this for years, so they're not fly by night. But the point of it is, if you wanted to get together with a group of friends and try this on your own and call it your Artist Way program, nobody would stop you, and you would not be violating any copyright rules. All right, so I wanted to share some other relevant materials briefly, because as I was going through the Artist Way, I was finding connections with so many different things I either knew in detail or knew about. And so I'm going to present these in order of what I would call my relative familiarity with them. First of all, soul collage. I've already talked enough about that, so I'm not going to say more. But the whole thing about soul collage is you're doing cards that represent pieces of yourself, aspects of your personality. And that's Artist's Way is, I mean, you're going after at least one of those pieces. You're going after your inner artist, your inner creative. You're probably also appealing to multiple inner children. Okay, so soul collage is a great complement to Artist's Way. In addition, Matt Licata, PhD. Matt is interesting. I call him Matt because I've actually done a retreat with him, so I have more familiarity than just having read his book. He talks about lost orphans of psyche and soma. First time I heard him talk about that was in February of this year, and I realized very quickly, I'm like, oh my gosh, my inner artist, one of my lost orphans. So again, Matt Licata is talking about those pieces of ourself, those inner parts of ourself that for various reasons we may have repressed or hidden. And his two books that have been out so far are The Path is Everywhere, which is probably the more accessible and relatable of the two books, and then A Healing Space. So someone I'm not familiar with at all, or not that much, is Richard Schwartz. And yes, you want to talk about him, Debbie, a little bit?
We've had a little bit of, I have a good internal family systems. Phil's had an experience with an internal family system therapist.
Yeah.
And really good stuff.
And again, we're talking about these, these various aspects and personas that we all have within us and uncovering them. I mean, the Artist's Way is a path to a subset of those. And Matt Licata and Richard Schwartz are talking much more broadly if you're interested in finding out more about your internal cast of characters. Yeah, I think that what Richard Swartz is probably best known for is No Bad Parts. I've heard that podcast, very relatable. And more recently, he has been introducing on Sounds True, which is a spiritual online resource. He's been introducing a spiritual approach to IFS, which I don't know anything about, but I find it interesting because I always thought IFS was supposed to be spiritual anyway, but. All right. That's what I got, Debbie.
Okay, I came a little bit late to maybe discuss this. On soul collage, my image of a collage is having lots of pictures spread out on a table, and you cut out the ones you like and you glue them on a page. But that's become increasingly more difficult with less printed material and more images online. So
Yes.
how does that work for you?
Okay, so you've actually asked pointed out a couple of interesting things. You've kind of pointed out the difference between soul collage and general collage, okay? So soul collage is one energy, one idea per card. A soul collage card can take anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour or more. Some people just go to town. Mine are very quick usually. Whereas general collaging, bigger piece of paper, maybe multiple ideas going on. You're trying to express a theme or a journey as opposed to one central idea. All right, but then I think you led up to, what about the lack of magazines and print material? Yeah, so soul collage facilitators are concerned about this. I heard this come up in, for at least 3 years, 4 years. I think even before Steve and I moved from the East Coast, it was being verbalized as a concern. So there are multiple things to do here. Libraries, library sales, places that sell used magazines. Another trick I've discovered, because magazines are still being published now, I wonder how much longer. We're already starting to see newspapers fail, right? And how much longer is the print media with us? One trick I've been using to great effect is when my frequent flyer miles expire, and they tend to do that, I don't go as many places as some people, I guess, the airlines send me notes and say, would you like magazines? And I take magazines, and I get them for free for a year. And then at the end of the year, I get this wonderful little card which says, we would like to renew your subscription of Veranda, and it will auto-renew on whatever date, and it will be $25 a year unless you call us and tell us not to. Well, I'm not going to pay $25. So I call and to cancel, and they inform me that there is a great deal.
Yes.
Yeah, you ever got, okay. So I have tubs of magazines for trying to cancel subscriptions that I'm then offered a great deal. So as a soul collage facilitator, I have piles of boxes of magazines to use for a while. So you too can build a magazine collection if you want to.
Some of us have to carry them around.
So, but I don't know how long, it's a real concern. There have been workarounds, but yeah, the ready supply of magazines is just not there like it used to be, for certain. Phyllis, and then Susan.
Have you experienced a more permanent change in your self-concept as a result of these experiences?
I would say yes.
You'd like to share, right?
Yeah, so I think the biggest change I'm finding is that I'm bolder. I'm less likely to remain silent if I hear something that I disagree with or don't like. I'm also more maybe precise in how I frame my disagreement. Because the thing of it is, this goes to the broader issues of the day, if we're going to relate to people we disagree with, we need to find a way to express that disagreement that doesn't just automatically tick them off, assuming they're not going to be ticked off by disagreement in general. One thing I would say is I think I feel a little more lighthearted, more willing to go out and have adventures And by adventures, I mean, keep in mind, I was not a person, I do not like city driving. May I just say that? Yeah, okay. I haven't yet tackled the side streets of Seattle, but I'm getting pretty good. I will now drive through it. And I will drive into Tacoma, which, I mean, I had to go to the Artist's Way. The Artist's Way entailed arriving in Tacoma slightly before dark, leaving after dark, and parallel parking on a side street not far from Wright Park, which you all know isn't the greatest area. But it wasn't, we would accompany each other to our cars, and I got myself one of those little alarms, personal alarms. But I feel like my horizons have broadened, that I'm just willing to go out and try more things. I don't yet know exactly what my primary artistic expression is. I will tell you that. And I've also concluded maybe it's not important, right? So Susan and then Debbie, okay.
So this is like bearing my testimony, as we used to say in Utah. When I was recovering from my first knee surgery, Heather Muntmeyer, went to my church, and she came over and did a soul collage with a group of friends, and I haven't been able to take pain medicine because I had those blisters on my back from being allergic to everything, even Tylenol. I was just allergic to everything, so this was the first time for about 2 hours I didn't even think about my knee. It was incredible. I'd only had the surgery maybe 2 weeks before. It was really cool.
Oh, so you've done it then, okay.
I didn't realize it until you started talking about it, but that's what Heather was having us do.
Okay.
She just said we're going to make collages, and it was really neat.
Yes, maybe she's not a facilitator, because exactly, if we're not facilitators, that's what we're supposed to say. We're going to do collages, or we can say collages like soul collage, because soul collage is, I'm not going to say unfortunately, it's one of those copyrighted terms.
Okay.
And so she probably appropriately didn't say she was teaching that, yeah. But it's great she shared it with you, because that's one of the encouragements of the soul collage program is if you know it, just take it and share it, yeah.
So Heather was the first one to teach me about collage, and she didn't call it soul collage either, but it was, as I was asking that question about where do you get materials, I'm remembering the tables she used to have spread with magazines, and at the time I was totally like, where did she even get these?
Oh, there are ways, yes.
She's no longer in the area, but anyway, Phil and I, in a much more relaxed way, did the Artist's Way for Retirement. And part of that practice was writing your memoir in different chunks, which gave me a beautiful outline of just kind of a brain dump of my story when I decided I really wanted to write my memoir. So I had at least the basic facts as I remembered them already written out. And it was really helpful for us, because I was never a creative person. I was the responsible person. I was the big sister.
You were the partner of the creator, not taking on the mantle for yourself.
That's not an easy road, guys.
Great.
But he very graciously embraced my desires to step out and be more creative, which was really helpful. He could have said, no, we've got our roles, just stay in your roles.
Phil. Yeah.
Just to make a comment about internal family systems, the first time I heard of it, I'm like, what is internal family systems? It was just totally confusing.
It sounds like schizophrenia.
It's like I thought, well, I'm the youngest child, my brother's the middle child, and how does that all work? It has nothing to do with your family, it has everything to do with you.
Right.
And if you've ever said, part of me wants to do X, but the other part of me says no, well, those are two parts of you. Those are your internal family, and there's probably 5 or 6 voices inside you. Some are older, some are younger, some are wiser, some are rebellious, and they're all in you. They're all part of you. And internal family systems is beginning to identify those voices and understand what they were trying to do, and that there's the idea behind there are no bad parts arts is that some of those voices inside you are there because they're trying to protect you.
That's right. The inner critic, one of my favorite, and I didn't bring my card for my inner critic today, absolutely all about protection. Yeah, I heard you say multiple personality. So yeah, so that's the thing. This is different. You know, the whole premise here with multiple personality disorder. Generally, I was thinking about what's the one key difference. I think generally the central core personality doesn't know what's going on, right? And I'm not a psychiatrist here. They're blacking out and they're not necessarily having a recollection. Here, I can hear those voices. I may not always be aware of them. They war, the good angel, the bad angel, the one who wants to get me into trouble, the one who wants to keep me safe. Yeah. Yeah, if you can hear them, there's no cause for concern. So basically. All right, thank you for that elaboration. That was all really good. Right. Any other questions? We are...
You wouldn't want to lead a group here at church, would you?
Artist's Way? I think that's an interesting question. I mean, no, and I mean that in the best way. It's kind of, let's think about that. If we could find, if there's a core level of interest, because I told you what happened with attrition. If it comes, we'd want to at least have 10 of us standing at the end of the day, so we have somebody to talk to when we come to meetings. But it's a very worthwhile program. And I also would have to say, I think the attrition in Tacoma, it's probably a well-known program. It attracts a large crowd. I'm not sure we would have that kind of thing here. So I don't know, something to talk about. Might be something, talk about the forum doing, or the forum group doing other things. I'd leave the door open to it. Yeah. Yeah.
We could try once here.
Yeah, we could, we'd need to think about it. Where we would meet we'd need to see how many people are interested, because if we have enough people, we'd probably need to figure out something that is here, so we'd have a big enough space. Yeah. That was a great question, thank you. Any other questions? Well, thank you for being such a involved audience. I really appreciated the questions and the input, and thank you for allowing me to share my experience. Some of my art, such as it is up here if you want to take a closer look. Again, it's soul collage and a mandala, and a couple of books that I just brought with me.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Share.
Nice job.
You like that?
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Thank you. You know,